Welcome to Layer of Secrets podcast. Tonight we're talking about supporting your local convention. Specifically, Ken went to MEPACon in the Lehigh Valley in eastern Pennsylvania. I am David Moore, and I am nearly done tiling the backsplash. I'm grouting tomorrow. Promise.
You keep saying that, but this is why I don't tile backslashes. I'm Ken Newquist, and I just ran 12 hours worth of games. So let's talk about them. MEPACon is my local area game convention. It's located near Allentown, Pennsylvania, like the song. It's about 30 minutes from my house. It's held every 6 months, which is really nice for a lot of reasons. One, it just kind of helps build the community. And it also means, like, if you run something in the fall that people liked, you can come back in the spring and they'll probably want to play in your game, which is pretty darn nifty. I'm not exactly sure on the head count. I'm thinking maybe 150, but I may be underestimating that. I'm not great at counting the numbers, but there's a goodly number of tables that are running at any given time. I'll try and get a better head count for the next time I go to the con. The biggest thing is that it has moved to a new hotel. So the con's been going for long time, like, I don't know, at least 15 years, something like that. And it's been kind of all over eastern Pennsylvania. And it's descended from another number of other cons that were held in the area during like the mid to late 90s, like Lehigh Con and BoggleCon and what have you. And so some of the same people whom I've been gaming with for 30 years go to this con. So that's pretty cool. Ugh. They moved to Delta Hotels by Marriott, which is out on Route 100 at the far end of the Lehigh Valley from me, and it's so much better than the last one that they had, which I believe is actually getting torn down. But this one, you come in, it's bright, it's nice. The registration desk is right where you walk in through the front door, and then the gaming rooms are just beyond that. So it's all nice and central in the con area. There's food on site. There's also restaurants nearby. So it's a substantial upgrade from the previous convention hall. I will not speak ill of it, other than just to say it was a bit chaotic on the inside.
Nice. Gotcha. Was the old one set up to be a convention hall, or was it more like one of those hotels that may have a couple of meeting rooms but isn't meant for any sort of real big event?
No, the challenge was that I think it grew organically. I suspect it grew organically over the years, and so as they added things on, so they added like, I don't know, like the restaurants were in the middle of it, but then they were walled in. Like they had windows, but they looked over on the corridors, not outside. And then you had like the convention space, which was a variety of small and large rooms. So, I mean, it was okay. Certainly had a lot of fun playing there, and it was convenient. It was a little closer for me, but it was an old sort of tier 3 level, right? Like moving on down, maybe a 2-star hotel. The Delta by Marriott was much, much nicer. I don't stay at the hotel because I'm local, so I can easily just drive out there and come back.
That's handy.
It's very handy. So anyway, if you run 12 hours worth of gaming, you get your Game Pass for free. So in years past, I have usually done that and then picked up another game or two along the way. So this year I ran 3 games. The first was Morka Norden, which is my Shadowdark adventure that was ripped from my lunchtime campaign. Because here's the plan, right? If you've already written the content for your lunchtime game or for your regular campaign, you can just take that and you don't actually have to write anything else for the con. So
you were 100% right. There are more than one Sparks modules that Aaron has written because we were running a home Star Wars D6 West End Games D6 game, and she just took like huge chunks of like things that would take us 3 to 4 months to get through because it's the first time and we don't care that it's not constrained to a 4-hour-ish window at a con. So she'd take all of that and condense it down to a module that could be run in 4 hours. So I approve of this plan. It's a good plan.
You've already done the work, and you can't procrastinate on a thing you've already done. So that's a win for me, because I have these ideas, and I submit the events as the motivation for me to write them. But then inspiration usually strikes in the week or two before the con is about to happen. And if I'm honest, maybe 2 days before the con is about to happen. So, or
that's
maybe
how
the day
procrastination works, Ken.
Yes, or the day of,
like you putting in the events is your hack for ADHD. To give you a deadline.
Yes.
So that the panic monster comes and like throws the chaos monkey off the wheel in your brain and takes control and goes, we have to get this thing done because we're running a game tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. So it's not real until it's real. And so that plan has worked. A better plan is writing it ahead of time And so you can have the little deadlines where you have to do it every week for your campaign. So I should do more of that. Worked out really well.
I am totally willing to be a guinea pig for future ones, like I was last year for your Mothership game, because that was a lot of fun.
Yes. So I'll talk about that one too. My other way to motivate myself is to schedule playtests, but then occasionally life intervenes. And occasionally, sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, but we'll talk about that when I get to Decanted. So anyway, Morka Norden, it's my Norse-themed Shadowdark campaign setting. And it was cool. I had 5 players. Most of them hadn't played Shadowdark before, but were curious and interested. They all had a great time. And it was a loud, boisterous table. Everybody was really enjoying themselves. There were things.
Those are the best tables.
Yeah, it was cool. And so we talked about this in our D8 mistakes we made with running Shadowdark. I learned a lot about what I did wrong in my lunchtime game. Like, not having, realizing that spells don't require you to, not realizing.
They don't fail.
Yes.
They don't have a mishap if you just fail.
Yes. And so I think that light was beginning to go on during the con game, and it all came together today while we were talking about it. But in any case, so all other things like just how, you're running it through for the second time. So you learn like little things. The biggest challenge I had was actually switching from a digital tabletop to actual physical tabletop, because I got used to the digital tabletop handling all the dynamic lighting, right? If you're in the real world and you have the map, well, if you draw it all ahead of time, then you have to have some way of shielding what they're seeing, right? And you have to have the radius of the light. If you draw as you go, which is what I would normally do you throw down a template? So I have this clear disc from the Savage Worlds Kickstarter that it's a plastic disc. It's about the same size as the light sources for Shadowdark. I'll just use that. It shows everybody where it is, but then the miniatures are on the disc. And so everybody has to move at the same time, or then you have to remember where they were. So I ended up just marking out the number of squares from the light source, like just with little ticks, and then drawing out the map around them, which I think was actually probably the best way to do it. But it was an added complication that I wasn't expecting. The other thing that I realized is I just needed a print copy of the book. Having the PDF on my iPad was fine, but it's a very nice book, but also it's easier to reference a physical book in some cases, and I could go in and I could bookmark it and have the pages I need to open to very quickly. So I have ordered a physical book, and I am remedying my lack of one.
Unfortunately, since the advent of PDF game books, I still have the same complaint about them that they have yet to solve. It's getting better for most game books. If the game book has a good table of contents, that really helps. But I probably still could go into my first edition AD&D book and go, okay, about here is where the wizard spell starts.
Right.
And I know I can tell you now, here's the wizard mishap table. Yes, this one has a bookmark in it because I always have to go there, but I also know that, about here is where the monsters start.
Right.
Whereas in the PDF, you either have to go to the table of contents and scan it and then hit the button, or you have to be scrolling until you see what you're looking for. I really like the physicality of an actual physical book. That being said, when I run Shadowdark, I not only have the physical book, but I also have the PDF open.
Because you can search then. Searching is an option, right? It's just, it's not always an efficient option. So I learned a lot playing that game. It was a good learning experience for me. I also learned about hey, luck is important. I got to try out some new things from, the Cursed Scrolls Volume 3, which is the Norse-themed ones. We got the Sea Wolf was in play, the Seer was in play. So all in all, it was a great game. I'm hoping I can run it for some of our Lair of Secrets friends too, because, hey, I've already got this one-shot ready to go, so why not run it again, right?
I love it.
I mean, you'll have some spoilers because, we've been talking about it, but I think it'll be, I can mix things up a little bit.
I only have a little bit of the spoilers, but given how Shadowdark runs, I don't think that that's going to make any difference.
Yeah, exactly. So then the next game I ran was Decanted, which is a Mothership funnel that I wrote. I've never written a funnel before for anything. I've never run a funnel before for anything, but I've played in a number of funnels, mostly for Dungeon Crawl Classics. And so It was good. The way that I set it up was it takes place on a starship that's going to this world. They're trying to save a shake and bake planet. The planet was being terraformed by a evil corporation who just like cut all the corners. They went bankrupt, or basically decided they didn't want to maintain the planet anymore. They sold it to a rival, and that rival has sent this ship with workshops and seed biology and whatever to try and reboot the terraformed planet. And so something horrible happens at the beginning, and the players wake up, they're decanted from their cryopods to realize the ship is in a bad place. And they have to figure out what's going on. And the idea that I had was that they would, as they died, a new character would be decanted to replace the character that just died. Rather than having in a normal funnel, you would just start with 4 characters and like try and run them all simultaneously. That felt like it was going to be too complicated for Mothership. So I just like, I'll just decant new ones. That'll be a fun mechanic.
Like Paranoia.
Yeah. That's how I was inspired by like Paranoia, and I keep forgetting the name of the Dennis Quaid movie, Pandorum. I think it's Pandorum, which is about a generational starship that runs into some serious problems. It was also inspired by Alien Covenant and how that movie ends, because basically all the colonists are in a very bad place at the end of Alien Covenant. I mean, we'll never see the sequel, but it was all inspired by like, you wake up in a bad place. And so what happened was I didn't make the funnel dangerous enough. And they were also very smart. They're playing 0 level characters, so they definitely had the deck stacked against them. But they didn't die. All props to Hull Breach, which is an anthology for Mothership that was released, I think, last year. It has a funnel in there, and so I borrowed the funnel rules from that and tweaked them some for my own purposes. But one of the things I had in there was that when they wake up from cryosleep, they have a chance of having a medical condition. So they're anemic, so they have less hit points, or they suffer a stroke, or they have a heart attack because their cryopods are in bad shape from everything that's going wrong on the ship.
It's not a proper cryopod awakening. It's an emergency thing. And
it's an emergency decant. And the thing, the other conceit is that the flight crews are dead. So the people who are supposed to be running the ship have already been killed by the menace that is running amok on the ship. And so now you're down to like tier 3 people, because the AI is like, I need help. I'm going to boot you up.
Yep.
But, the point of a funnel is not actually to kill characters. The point of a funnel is to get your 0 level character to survive. And so you can have a 1st level character. And I think in that case, it actually worked quite well. They all survived except for the guy who woke up and had a heart attack, and so he had a D4 plus 1.
The next character.
Yeah, so he woke up, and we all like talking about the symptoms. So like they're realizing what's happening. They're also realizing they don't have the medical skills to save him. They're trying to find a med pack to see if they can stabilize him, but there's no med packs because they're not the first ones to wake up in this situation, right?
Gotcha.
Did a great job of creating like the initial tension, and then their character died, and then he rolled up a new one.
Gotcha.
Meanwhile, there was another character who had suffered a stroke, and that kind of put the impetus for them to go and figure out how to help this character, because there was also a time limit. Like, if you have an actual stroke, there's a kind of that golden hour sort of thing where, you have your chance to minimize the results. And so none of this is to make light of heart attacks or strokes, which are very serious issues, but Mothership is a very serious, deadly game. So it seemed appropriate for people getting decanted. And so it worked out great. Like, they had a lot of fun. I think it was a younger table, which was also interesting because they weren't getting any of my references.
Oh, no.
They had all seen Aliens, so that we at least had that baseline. But I'm rattling off these other movies, and they're like, ooh, I should go watch that one. I'm like, yes, you should. But
Maybe
it was
we
good.
need to do that for an episode, is these good sci-fi movies that you may not have seen if you're not as old as Ken and I.
Yeah, and some of them are niche. Like Pandorum came out in like 2010, 2011. And it wasn't a big hit.
Not an old one, though. I mean, it's 14 years old now, but it's not that old of a
Yeah, but if you're not looking for them, like Sunshine is another one where like they launch a spacecraft to restart the sun. Like the sun is dying, and so they need to launch some device into the sun to restart it. It's similar sort of like drama, and like the clock is ticking and what have you. And they're like, Sunshine?
The Core. But there's another one.
Which one?
The Core.
The Core. Yeah, dumb, but yes.
Yes.
So dumb, but yeah. But it was great. They had a lot of fun. I will say like that it gave me a lot of trouble writing it because I kind of overdid it. Like I had sketched out what I thought the ship was going to be. And I realized, like, okay, I had all this vision of how I was going to do it, and I was being way too detailed in everything that I was doing. And so eventually I took a step back and was like, I don't actually need the whole ship. Like, because I had made maps for like
True.
all of the major sections, high level things. And I'm like, you know what? I actually only need to detail the areas that are going to help them the most. So engineering and the bridge, and I can just kind of like sketch in like the cargo hold or the workshop, and
Right.
there they
Theater
get
of the
there.
mind in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, but also
Yep.
just kind of improvising. Well, it's the workshop area. You're just gonna find stuff because again, just like we've talked about for Shadowdark, Mothership, you just succeed unless you're in danger,
Ah, okay. Okay.
right? So if you need the things to make the tool, like they when they woke up, they went to the cryo supplies area and they found all of like the liquid nitrogen and oxygen and hydrogen that you need to be able to run in cryo. They also found the mostly safe for humans cryo fluid, which they made good use of. And so they made a cryo gun. I'm like, sure, you should totally make a cryo gun. Like they
Sure.
had
Yeah.
a person with a jury rig skill, and so they did it. I mean, there was a role, but like because they were under threat, but like they made it, and so it's cool for them to have a cryo gun, and it helped them. It might not have, but it helped them. So that
Nice.
was a fun game.
One thing I was asking or was wondering is, as they're going through, were they seeing evidence that others had been woken up before
Oh yeah,
and
so
had
like
like
when
ransacked things for equipment?
yeah, so the cryopods, they woke up and they found like the alien infection had already disrupted a number of other cryopods. There were bodies in various negative states. So
Gotcha.
it was clear that something horrible had happened. Gravity was off, major ship systems were off, and it was also obvious that like other people had woken up, right? So then they would get to the flight crew. I also kind of had them as being, they were never supposed to wake up, right? So their cryopods weren't like bright and shiny, where the flight
Right.
crews, they're the space jockeys,
They're
right?
the
They're the
ones
ones who are gonna,
who might need to be woken up in the middle, whereas the people who are going to be colonists are like, we will decant you when we are there
right, or on
and
the
have a
way, or
medical
yeah.
staff ready.
Yeah, you were never actually supposed to be awake in space, and the fact that you are is very bad for you. So yeah, they picked up
Right.
on all the clues, and I made sure because if I've learned one thing from playing with Aaron, it's make sure that there's some sort of duct work. So I
Nice.
drew the ducts on the map, and like they played it smart. But I think I could have added a few more monstrous threats in some other areas of the ship where it was like a little bit lightly populated. But they played really smart. They had a lot of fun with it, and I think I've got some additional Mothership conversions where people are going to go. I think everybody who played my games wanted to go and play more of them, so that speaks a lot
Nice.
to the quality of the games. So that
Yeah.
was fun.
I think if you wanted to make it more deadly, one of the cryopods opens while they're there because the alien infection has infected whatever's inside, and now it crawls out.
Yeah, there were a few of those. There were some and there was a lot of like random threats in different areas. I think I just might need to add a few because I had some like jump scary type things like that. They were not the Prometheus crew. They weren't doing the stupid. And so the biologist was not trying to make friends with all of the weird alien life forms. He was curious, but his curiosity stops when he realized it was going to kill him.
I mean, when you see what looks like a snake's threat display, don't assume that because it's alien, it's not a threat display. Err on the side of caution and
Yes.
don't die.
So I think the other change I would make, having run through, and this is why I had wanted to run it with you guys, because I think there's some things I would have figured out if I had had a chance to play test it beforehand. Like, I think the problem with having them all be decanted from the cryo bays, which was its own module within the ship, which I divided the ship up into like plug and play modules because I guess that's a theme of my Mothership games. And the problem would be
Nice.
if you did get to engineering, which is like 3 modules down, and you get decanted. Well, now you're back in cryo, which is like 30 minutes away from where the rest of the players are. So I might have like localized cryopods in each of the different modules for like
I mean, that makes sense.
local specialists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
it
know,
speaks
and
to the redundancy you would have, right?
plus, if there's space, why not put a cryopod there?
Right.
It's not, space, it's a spaceship, space is at a premium. So, stuff those cryopods in as much as you can.
There was a funny comment on Dice Camp where I was building and I was posting on Dice Camp and what have you, and I was like, oh man, I forgot to build out engineering, and it's a big part of my module. And somebody replied, oh, that's the DLC, right? That's like if you're doing the evil corporate future thing, it's like, oh yeah, sorry, the corporation didn't buy engineering. They were supposed to, but engineering does not actually exist. So
Yeah.
so sorry.
I was actually I was actually thinking something along those lines, but they did have engineering or something like it, but something went horribly, horribly wrong, and the people ahead of them jettisoned that section, and
Right. Well,
now the players have to figure out a way around that section because it's no longer there, or have to do a
yes.
spacewalk.
Yes. Yeah. So I think there's some interesting, and I think there's opportunities too to like, to run it as a like. Now you're playing as like if you were to play it again like at the next con, which is again this is the advantage of running it 6 months later. Like if everyone did die, hey, come back next time, and you can be the crew that comes along for the second run. Because the other thing I was doing as a way of making sure that people didn't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, because it would be you just take metagame damage from doing that, right? So I was having the AI train people's brains, like the normal thing to do before you arrive at the colony that you're going to be helping out is you just download the latest information about the colony, any specialized data that you need, and boom, we don't have to have a briefing, you're just good to go. And I'm like, well, things are broken, but the AI can still do that. That was my way of saying, and this is how you remember what happened before. And so the other way that I indicated that something bad had happened was they wake up with vague memories of previous iterations, so each one of them got basically like a cryptic clue. And then the other thing that it really helped with was I just revealed the full map, and they're like, I didn't draw it as I went, I just showed them the map. And it's like, well, you seem to remember this. Cryo support's over there. Right?
Yeah.
It streamlined everything.
Yeah. It didn't make anything less threatening. It's
right.
Like sometimes lack of knowledge is fearful in and of itself, but in a game like that, it seems like that's kind of an unnecessary hurdle that isn't as dramatic to do as other things.
Right. Get to the threat. Get to the challenge. Get to the inflection point. Like, don't make them have to redo everything or ask a gazillion questions. They could just know it.
I could totally see having, like, if you reran it, slightly changing the layout or slightly changing, not the layout in general, but like they're in engineering. Engineering is completely trashed, and there was a giant fire. And so there's not a lot that's salvageable here, because if they played it before, they'd be maybe headed to engineering to go find stuff, and then they find out that it's been destroyed.
That actually is one of the things I did.
Okay.
I destroyed engineering. Like, engineering was toast, was the clue they got. Or engineering is toast was the clue that they had gotten, but they didn't quite know what that meant until they got there.
Okay.
Which was basically just made everything harder to use at engineering. I didn't actually destroy engineering, but I think it would be fun to run it again at the next con. And anybody who played before, well, yeah, they know what happened before, but now it doesn't matter, right? Because there's going to be other threats and different people, and it's going to play out a little differently. Did I kill a lot of people in a funnel? Sorry, yeah, I do. So my other game was Gaslands, which I've run a couple of times at MEPACon. I don't think I ran it at the last one because I wasn't prepared, but I tried something different this time. And I had actually posted on Lair of Secrets when I first ran Gaslands about things I wanted to do different in the future, and so this was one of them. I created a Friday scenario that was meant to be a tutorial that was called Straight to Hell. And it's just the drag race option. And so I'm actually thinking I want to do some blog posts for Lair, and I can post the images that I made in Incarnate in case other people want to print them. So basically, Straight to Hell is you've got up to 8 racers. They're in like kind of a canyon thing. They just need to go straight. There's 2 barriers that come out, and those are the gates. And so you have to turn at least a little bit to get around the gates.
Okay.
Because for those who don't know, I guess I should actually, I think the other 2 games people are familiar with. Gaslands is a miniatures-based game with basically weaponized Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars, where it's like Car Wars, but more streamlined and a little easier to play, or a lot easier to play.
And did I entice you into getting Gaslands, or did you already have it when I got it?
I think I had it when you got it, because a friend of mine had it, and we were getting super excited. This was pre-pandemic, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So then,
no, it couldn't have been, because we started the podcast during the pandemic.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember. It might have been 2020. It might have been like 2019, the end of 2019 when we ran it for the first time. I don't know.
Because I was gonna be really, really bummed if I had introduced you to Gaslands and you have run and played Gaslands like a gajillion times more than I have. I have only been able to run/play it once.
Yeah, I think we got it before. I think my friend Nate had gotten it before the pandemic, and then or maybe just like in 2020 or something like that. And then I think I ran it for the first time in like 2021. So I think you played it for realsies before I did. But in any
Right.
case, I have since played a fair amount of Gaslands, and what I wanted to do was have an introductory session on Friday that people could play so that they could then play in the more advanced one on Saturday or Sunday. And so the intro game worked very well because all you got to do is go straight. Weapons activate after the first gate. It teaches you how to use the movement templates, which we have those. It teaches you how to use the dice.
Very Death Race.
Everybody had very Death Race. I didn't have any turrets or anything. I didn't have any special weapons. It was all buggies actually with machine guns. So truly just trying to strip it down to the core of Gaslands, and it worked out really well. I think if I'd been slightly more prepared, it would have gone even better, but we fit it within the 2-hour time period, which was the key thing.
Nice.
And then on Sunday, I ran Concrete Jungle, which I have all this extra like little segments of PVC left over from when my son did his Eagle Scout project. And so I'm like, I want to run a scenario with these things. I want to paint them gray as concrete cylinders, and I want to make them obstacles on this map. And I had the vision, and like, I did all the things, but it's more complicated. And so I think to really do that scenario justice, it really needs to be 4 hours long, and it probably needs more experienced players. And so I think
How long was it?
It was 2. I had
Okay.
three people,
Yeah.
including myself. We got pretty far along. I mean, I think if we'd had another hour, we would have gotten to done. So maybe it's a 3-hour scenario. It depends on how many players you have. But I would probably cap it at 4 players because I gave everybody 2 cards.
Okay.
So there's some tweaks, right? Like with a con game, if you're playing at home, and you have a team, because the game is like team based, and you spend your you spend your gas cans to get your cars and what have you. I think, and you have all of Saturday to play it, then it's not a big deal. If you're running a con game where it's only 2 hours or 4 hours, if you add a car, it doubles the time.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
I'm gonna tweak the scenario some. I will run it again at some point, but I think what I need to do next is actually, I'm thinking for the next MEPACon, I might just run 2 intro scenarios, right? Like straight to hell, and then maybe I'll use one of the ones I came up with previously, just to get people's experience up, because everybody who plays it loves it. Right.
Yeah.
It's a fun game.
It's a fun game. It is definitely a fun game.
And it's got lots of twists and turns. It is a game that you have to play to understand it. So Gaslands has the concept of gears where, it's got 6 gears, and you want to be going faster because the higher the gear that you're in, you get to act on every gear. So it's like you've got a turn, which is divided into 6. And if you're going at 5, then that means you get to go on 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But people don't intuit that. Like, it's not obvious to them until they've played the game. And so they often play it safe and want to be in gear 2 because they don't want to crash.
Because it's harder to turn and do other things the faster you're going.
Yes.
But you get to do more things more often the faster you're going.
Yes.
There
is very much a risk reward. And most of my games have ended this way, where people do leap out into the front because they figure it out pretty quick. And then they're going like a bat out of hell, but you can't turn. So, I think I need a few more intro sessions, and this is again the advantage of a local con that meets every 6 months, is that I think it's going to be easier to build up an audience for Gaslands. And maybe the next 2, I just do some intro sessions, and that might get us to a point where I could have an intermediate, right, and do it like Sunday morning.
4-hour slots?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that you could do.
Yeah, they've got like. Okay. I think they have they have like the whole gambit of possible slot times. I usually do either 2 or 4 because, again, if you run 12 hours of gaming, then you get a free pass. So, but I think 2 is the sweet spot. And so engineering my Gaslands, and maybe focus on terrain and modding the cars and coming up with some different scenarios, but keep it simple.
I mean, if you wanted to play 8 hours of Gaslands, you could do like 2 intro scenarios and then the intermediate scenario. And then that way you can you can list the intermediate scenario as, this is intermediate knowledge, rudimentary knowledge of Gaslands is needed. And then maybe you get some of the people from your intro scenarios to come up and show up for the intermediate.
Yeah, or say like, for this game, like prerequisite is to have played in one of the Gaslands games before or something. Because I mean, it's not like a complicated game, but it does take time for you to get your head around how the game actually works. And that's another one that would have benefited from playtesting beforehand. I had scheduled it, but then everybody got sick. But
Gotcha.
but anyway, I think, I'm sure. I don't know that it's true that everybody has a local con. I think if you should look to see if you have a local con. It's a way of keeping our hobby alive. And I think MEPACon has been a tremendous service to my community in terms of connecting people with the gaming culture. They do a lot of like cool things like miniature painting. And I think one of the things that's been really rewarding over the years is how many kids go to it. It's a very family friendly con. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I think of it all the way back to Origins, right? Like 2009 when our kids were little.
My gosh.
You had
Yeah.
kids running around and being kids in a
Yep.
pretty safe environment. And they're usually with their parents. I don't think they have a kid room. But you had the table next to me when I was playing in Castles and Crusades. It was just 5 or 6 kids playing D&D.
Yep. We're the local con for here that's coming up in less than a month, I think now. It's it's on Easter weekend, so pretty soon. Is holy crap, that's 2 weeks from now. So is Hoosier Con. So who's your con, not Hoosier.
Gotcha.
But yes, it's a play on the pronunciation. And it's been a fun con. Depending upon where it's been hosted, it's moved around twice. It used to be one place before the pandemic. Now it's in another place after. But it's a neat con. It's the new place I like it better than the old place, although the old place was closer to my house. So like 15, 20 minutes away instead of nearly an hour. But it had a really good blend of different kinds of games playing out there. And I recommend it. I definitely recommend seeing if there is a local con, especially if you're if you don't have the budget or you're too far or don't have the time off work or whatever to go to like Origins or Gen Con or any of the bigger cons. Yeah. I think the smaller cons actually would give you, in some ways, it's a different kind of fun. Because the smaller cons really depend upon more GMs to come out and like support that con. Whereas Gen Con and Origins, they'll usually have like Wizards of the Coast or the Paizo has their organized play session people, and they put all those people together and bring in, all the GMs are still volunteer, but it's seemingly much easier to run games like you ran of like, hey, I want to run some Mothership and I want to run some Gaslands and some other stuff. Go ahead, let me do it. Let me run Shadowdark. And they're very happy to have you do that. Whereas Origin and Gen Con, it's a bit tighter there's more of competition for getting in because the spaces fill up quickly.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I found I have found over the years at MEPACon and has definitely held true is people are hungry to play some of these games. So Mothership and Shadowdark, I think, have good reputations online. They have good followings, but it's hard to find a game. It can be hard to convince your players to do something else. And so offering to run those games at your local convention, like people showed up. Like I had multiple people in both my Mothership, in all 3 games actually, Gaslands, Mothership, and Shadowdark, where they're like, I've been wanting to play this for a while. I have the book. I read through it. I just never had a chance to actually play it. So thank you for running this, which is,
Gotcha.
A cool feeling.
Yeah, it's making me think, should I run Shadowdark at HoosierCon? I mean, if I do it, it's April 18th, and as we're recording this, it's April 10th. So I only have 10 days to get prepped. There's the deadline.
But if you do Delicious in Dungeon, you've already written the content, right? Like you've already got your
a little bit, yeah. It'll be a little different. I was going to make a joke earlier when we were recording the D8 ways that we messed up, the errors we made in Shadowdark. Actually, it was in this episode. You were talking about how it was hard to draw the map.
Yes.
In MEPACon. And I was like, well, if you just bring a television and you lay it down flat.
I thought about that.
You could just run, you could just run Foundry VTT right on the table.
I was sorely tempted at the time I was running the game, but it all worked out. I guess the other thing that's helpful for a local con is, if you're looking to build your group or if you're looking for find other people to play, it's a way to just meet other players, right? The people I've been gaming with for like 20, 30 years or something like that. But post-pandemic, some of my friends have moved away. Some of them aren't playing in the real world right now because of family commitments. And so, if you want to play in the real world, it's a great way to play in the real world and maybe find other people who want to play in the real world.
So I know this all too well. Yes.
So support your local con.
Definitely. Which reminds me, I don't know that I bought tickets for HoosierCon yet. So I'm going to do that right after we finish.
You should probably do that.
Yep.
On that note, the mistake I made and I think I've done this the last 2 cons, is I'm running events and I forgot to sign up for them. I submitted my events. I was on the calendar for the events, but I didn't actually sign up to play any events. So I wanted to play in Delta Green. I couldn't play in Delta Green because all the slots were gone. So for next
Which
MEPACon,
is funny because you have all the Delta Green right behind your head.
Right. Like, I desperately want to play, and I have played it before, or Alien. Nobody was running Alien, but like, yeah, if you're gonna GM, it's easy to kind of get caught up in like all your prep, which is certainly what's happened to me because I'm super busy. But it is important to actually remember to sign up for the games if you are signed up for the con.
Yes, it is kind of important to do that.
So thanks for attending our latest Minion and Future Overlord training. Come over to larasecrets.com for links to all of our episodes and all of our social media and all of the things. And also please stop by YouTube and like and subscribe because we've been having fun over on YouTube. We've got lots of shorts and I've actually had some pretty good conversations happening on some of the episodes we've posted. So stop by there and contribute.
A little surprised at how much interaction some of our shorts have gotten, which is pretty good.
Yeah, occasionally the conversation goes off in some wild different direction that we weren't anticipating, but you know what? Cool.
Yeah. All right. Hope you have a good day.